Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special meeting of our council. And tonight we'll be dealing with several zoning bylaw amendments. So I'd like to start by having someone move and second the agenda, please. Moved by Rick and Randy. All those in favor? Thank you. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest for tonight? Seeing none. We'll move in to the zoning bylaw amendments applications. So tonight we have three zoning bylaw amendments. Application number ZBA 20-15FR, 1552409 Ontario Inc. Application number 2, which is ZBA 2017FR Albert Duquette. Application number 3, ZBA 2018 FR French River Supply Post and Marina Limited. The Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before council decides whether or not to pass a zoning bylaw amendment. The public hearing serves two purposes. First, to present to council and the public the details and background of proposed rezoning. And second, to receive comments from the public and agencies before a council decision is made. Monsieur Dumont will provide a summary of the application. From there, the applicant will be requested to make a presentation via live webcast, followed by questions from the public via live webcast, either in favor or against the proposal. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the Director of Planning, or anyone giving the presentation. The zoning bylaw amendment will then be considered by council later this evening. Monsieur Dumont, would you please advise how public notice was provided?
The notice of public hearing was posted in the municipal office and was sent by mail to the assessed owners within 120 meters of the subject property for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment applications this evening, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. The notices were sent on November 11, 2020, being over 20 days prior to this evening's meeting. Included with the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment and a key map showing the location of the subject property.
I now declare this portion of the hearing to be a public hearing to deal with application number ZBA 20-15FR 1552409 Ontario Inc. Monsieur Dumont, will you please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application?
So this application, the zoning bylaw application this evening, is a concurrent application, meaning that the planning board will hear the severance application on December 10th. So the zoning bylaw is going forward this evening first. So the concurrent application is, the purpose is to affect a lot addition, and the lot to be severed is approximately 0.34 hectares in area, with a lot frontage of approximately 24 meters on Green Bay Road. So the proposed severed lands are to be added to 322 Green Bay Road. So once the enlarged lot will be together, it's approximately going to be 0.7 hectares in area, with a lot frontage of 57 meters. So the enlarged lot is to be rezoned from rural to residential rural to recognize the intended use of the lot and to recognize the reduced lot area and lot frontages. So with respect to the PPS 2020, I'm of the opinion that the applicant's proposal would appear to be consistent with that, specifically with respect to 1.152, a residential development that locally is appropriate. With respect to the official plan, the lands are designated rural, and rural lands are considered within limited residential purposes, and continued on with the consent application, or when you're dealing with consent applications, section 4.5.1 lists instances when consents are granted. And again, this goes to the severance application too, but this is the whole purpose is a lot boundary adjustment because the individual, the existing house that's on the property actually encroaches on the property. The individual purchased the property not too long ago. And also the individual would like to put in a new septic system. And so because the property is so undersized right now, he doesn't have the room nor the capacity to upgrade his existing septic system. So that is also a result of him doing the lot boundary adjustment. So with respect to that, and with respect to zoning, the whole purpose for the zoning application this evening is the current rural zone requires a minimum 5 hectares in area and a minimum lot frontage of 100 meters. So the lot that's going to be retained as part of that severance is going to continue to meet those requirements. However, the proposed severed lot, which is going to be enlarged, will require certain provisions that will be established. And what I kind of touched on earlier is the acreage and the lot frontage, which will have to be recognized, and the change of use. So that's the intent of this evening's application, is to recognize both that and the use of the lands. With respect to agency comments, we received comments from the municipality of French River. There are no comments or concerns in relation to the application or any municipal conditions. None of those. Hydro One had no comments or concerns with the application, and no other comments were received as the date this report was written. So the application is consistent with the PPS, it complies with the official plan for the planning area, and therefore can be supported from a planning perspective.
Thank you, Matt. Is the applicant with us tonight?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? Which I don't see any. And from council, any questions? Comments? Oh, is that you, Randy?
Yes, it is, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Through you, just a quick question to Matthew about the retained lot. I see in the background of the aerial photo that there's 2 lagoons. Is that what those are, or what is the body of water that is in the retained property?
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
So you're correct in saying that what you see on the aerial imagery are 2 lagoons, and those 2 lagoons are part of the Green Bay Lodge, which is further to the south in terms of the waterfront commercial tourist establishment that's there. So that's how that is serviced.
Any other questions from?
No.
I'm sorry. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. I declare this public hearing to be concluded. It's now in order for council to make a motion for the council to consider the application. I need a mover and a seconder. Renee and Rick. Madam Clerk.
Duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that bylaw 2020-55, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-23 as amended for Jessica and Randy Smith, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay. Okay, thank you. Please be advised that there's a 20-day appeal period through which time any person or public body may, no later than 20 days after the day that the given written notice as required by section 3418 of the Planning Act is completed, appeal to LPAT by filing with the clerk of the municipality a notice of appeal setting out the objections, the objection or objections to the bylaw and the reason in support of the objection. Accompanied by a fee prescribed under LPAT. During the appeal procedure, no building permit may be issued or other work commenced. So now we'll go on to the second one, and I declare this portion of the hearing to be a public hearing to deal with application number ZBA 20-7 17FR, Albert Duquette. Monsieur Dumont, will you please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application?
Again, so this application this evening is also a concurrent application, meaning that there'll be a severance held at the planning board on December 10th. And this evening, the rezoning is being presented to council. So the lands are located on the south side of Highway 64, are north of Manette Lake, and municipally known as 6173 Highway 64. The lands are predominantly in rural and rural areas and have some waterfront residential to the west of the subject property. The subject lands are presently zoned residential rural under the current bylaw for the municipality of French River. The proposed zoning will rezone the severed lands, not the retained, just the severed lands, to waterfront residential in order to recognize the intended use of such lands, and a proposed reduced lot area. So meaning the lot that's being created is slightly under the waterfront residential requirements for acreage. And to also recognize some environmental regulations that were provided by the applicant's consultant and with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry Department. So this will all be combined in the bylaw that's been presented to council. There's a little bit of history with regards to this application. The same application was brought to both council and the planning board back in 2017. Then the severance application was supported by the planning board, and so was the zoning bylaw amendment. That said, there were conditions as part of the severance application. One of those conditions was that that the individual had several travel trailers on the subject property, and the condition was with the building official and as well as myself that those travel trailers be removed from the property. So at the time, that was not satisfied as a condition. So as a result of that, the severance application lapsed. So fast forward to where we are today, those same application conditions are going to be applicable. I did perform a site visit, and I have been in talks with the applicant and the owner, and that I can reassure you now the property is clean and that there are no travel trailers. So we shouldn't have any issues in terms of satisfying those conditions and actually following through on the severance application and the zoning this time around. So that's kind of where we are right now. So I kind of touched on earlier, environmental. So as part of this severance application, again, I'm just touching on the environmental side because it does form part of the bylaw. That section 3.5.2 of the official plan speaks to significant habitat of endangered species. So Blanding's turtles was identified. So as a screening was required by the individual, they hired a consultant, and the consultant basically provided 4 bullet points going forward. That would be part of this bylaw, form part of it, and saying that the proposed dock be constructed on the portion of the shoreline where the minimum aquatic vegetation and bedrock bottom, and the proposed dock be a floating structure or pipe design with minimal footprint of a lake bottom. That the dock access pathway through a 30-meter buffer dock meanders through the natural contours of the bedrock, so it doesn't disturb the habitat of the Blanding's turtle. And lastly, that the building envelope be located within the existing built-up area. So I took that in consideration as part of determining what would form part of the bylaw. And with respect to the zoning, I've kind of touched on this earlier. The waterfront residential zone requires 0.8 hectares in lot area and 60 meters of frontage respectively. So the proposed severed lot has the lot area of 0.77. So that will also be recognized in the bylaw for reduced lot area. And basically the special provisions would also speak to the environmental recommendations that were provided by the consultant. Everything will form part of the bylaw to protect the natural habitat of the Blanding's turtle. Overall, the agency comments that were received during this process, Union Gas had no concerns. The municipality of French River stated that the proposed severance, which will be heard again December 10th, the planning board, will be applicable to the parkland dedication condition, as standard generally with the creation of new lots. The Ministry of Transportation had no objections. However, they did, again, because it's Highway 64, it's through their jurisdiction, had some notes that would form part of the severance application that I've brought to the owner's attention. And Bell Canada had no concerns or easement requirements for the application. As I mentioned earlier, Ministry of Natural Resources Forestry were circulated through this process. They've also provided that the report that was provided by the consultant and the recommendations that were completed were deemed acceptable for Blandings Turtle. So they've also provided kind of reassurance in terms of the building footprint and not making sure that the vegetation is removed at certain parts of the season. So that was touched on. Sudbury District Health Unit provided supportive comments with respect to the severed and retained lots, having the capability for the installation of a septic tank and leaching bed system. I did receive one phone call from the public in opposition of this evening's application from a resident in the nearby area. With the concern was that there'd be too much traffic on the small lake, which being Monette Lake. So I'm just voicing their concerns to council. And the other issue was in terms of taxes. Other than that, no other comments were received as the date of this report that's written. And lastly, considering everything that I've kind of touched on, the application is consistent with the provincial policies and with the official plan for the Sudbury planning area, and can be considered and supported by from myself.
Thank you, Matt. Does the applicant have a presentation that they wish to make? And do we have the applicant here today?
I don't believe so.
We don't? Okay. Any questions from the public? I don't think there's any members of the public on. And now turning to council, any questions or comments for Matt? Dean, Councillor Dean.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just it's a technical comment that I'm going to make, and under the application section of the presentation, it says the lands are located on the south side of Highway 64, and I'm pretty sure they're on the north side. Not a big issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? All right, seeing none, I declare this public hearing to be concluded, and now it's in order for council to make a motion and for council to consider the application. So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Bob and seconded by Randy.
Duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that bylaw 2020-56, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-23 as amended, advised Kent be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Please be advised that there is a 20-day appeal period, during which time any person or public body may, no later than 20 days after the day that the giving of written notice as required by Section 3418 of the Planning Act is completed, appeal to the LPAT by filing with the clerk of the municipality a notice of appeal setting out the objections to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by the fee prescribed under LPAT. During the appeal period, no building permit may be issued or other work commenced. Now we'll move to the third and final application, and this application deals with number ZBA 20-18FR, French River Supply Post and Marina Limited. Mr. Dumont, would you please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to the application?
Thank you. I do believe that the agent is participating in this evening's virtual meeting. So I'm just going to make everybody aware of that. So with respect to the application this evening, again, this application is a concurrent application, they're proposing to sever a residential rural lot and also to provide an access easement to that property. And lastly is the zoning. So again, both those severance applications will be held on December 10th, and this evening the zoning is being held. So the subject lands are presently zoned rural special 19 under the current zoning bylaw for the municipality of French River. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment will rezone the lot to be severed and retained through the consent application, which is B as in Bob 2420 French River, from rural special 19, which is the existing zoning, to residential rural special. So we'll amend that special that's existing to a new special to recognize the intended use of the lots. The proposed retained lot will recognize the existing boat storage facility and accessory uses, and that there's no frontage on a public road, while the proposed severed lot is to be used for residential purposes and is to recognize no frontage on a public road. That's the intent of this application with respect to the residential rural zone and the special provision speaking to no frontage on a public road and acknowledging the existing uses on the retained parcel of land. With respect to the official plan, again, this kind of touches on access, specifically private roads, are roads that are not owned or maintained by the province or the municipality, in this case, the municipality of French River. So development or lot creation on private roads is discouraged in the official plan. However, there are many instances in the planning area where there are existing lots of record on private roads, or there are access over crown lands, or the key is via easement or private land. So in terms of the access point, obviously at the end of this private road is an established tourist establishment, waterfront tourist establishment. So it's always been accessed as such. There's no extension of a new development or extension of a new road in this case. So that's what's unique about the circumstance, which doesn't really change or have an impact with how the lands have been used over the years. So for that reason, I don't foresee any issues with the, in my opinion, in terms of access and the creation of the new lot, knowing that it is a lot of record and it's more of a housekeeping matter than anything. And that's pretty much French River Supply Post Road that's existing throughout that, and it provides legal access because there are other existing properties on that private road too that continue to be used for their uses. With respect to the zoning, the existing zoning, as I mentioned earlier, is the Rural Special 19, which permits a boat storage facility and accessory use and recognizes frontage on no frontage on a public road or street shall be applicable to such subject land. So that's what's existing right now. So if you went into the French River zoning bylaw and you went to special provisions at the bottom, S19 would be there and explicitly would state that. That was done years ago. So going forward with this application, the minimum lot area, minimum lot frontage requirements for a residential rural zone, again, are 0.8 hectares and 60 meters of frontage. So the proposed lots will not comply with the lot frontage requirements. Why is that? Because there's no public road frontage. So you have to acknowledge that in the bylaw. Okay. The proposed severed lot will have approximately 3.5 hectares in area. The proposed retained lot will have 4.8 hectares in area. Again, both no frontage on a public road, except for that the retained parcel contains a boat storage facility and accessory uses. So rather than having that rural special, we're going to have a residential rural special, recognizing and acknowledging that existing use. And we're going to delete special 19. We'll delete it and replace it with a new special provision. With respect to agency comments, Hydro One had no concerns. The municipality of French River had no concerns. Bell Canada did get back to us, and this will form part of the severance application. And they will require transfer of easement to protect their existing facilities. Bell Canada will require 3-meter easement to be measured at 1.5 meters on either side of the buried facilities that they have that are existing. Other than that, there were no comments from the public in support or opposition of this evening's application. So the application, for the reasons I've explained earlier, can be supportive. Why? Because they are consistent, in my opinion, with the PPS and with the official plan for the sub-replanning area.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. I see that the applicants are here. Do you have any comments to make at this point or at this time? I see Vanessa.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Vanessa Smith, and I'm a planner with Telic Engineering, and I am acting as agent for the property owners this evening. I'm going to keep this brief since Matt did such a good job, but the application before you this evening is to rezone the lands from rural special to residential rural special with permission for 0 frontage on a public road and to recognize the existing uses on the property. The zoning bylaw amendment is required to basically permit a severance or consent application and the development of a single family home. Currently, the existing zoning only permits for both storage facilities and the accessory uses. So therefore, a single detached dwelling is not currently permitted. As Mr. Dumont said, the intention is to sever off the northern portion of the property to construct the single family home, where the southern portion below French Riverside Supply Post Road would be continued to be used for boat storage facilities. Besides that, my client is really eager to get building in the new year, especially given the current climate of the world. And I thank you for your time this evening, and if you have any questions.
Thank you, Vanessa. And any questions from council to Vanessa or to Kevin? I see Kevin is here as well. Don't want to forget you, Kevin.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council for considering this application tonight. Vanessa can certainly answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions for Matt or the applicant? Seeing none. Then I declare this public hearing to be concluded. It's now in order for council members to make a motion and for council to consider the application. So I need a mover and a seconder for this application, please. Renee and Dave. You're on mute.
Unmute. Duly moved and seconded, be it resolved that bylaw 2020-57 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-23 as amended for French River Supply Post and Marina Limited be read at first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. Please be advised that there is a 20-day appeal period during which time any person or public body may, no later than 20 days after the day that the given of written notice as required by the Planning Act is completed, appeal to the LPAD by filing with the clerk of the municipality a notice of appeal setting out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, accompanied by a prescribed fee under LPAD. During this appeal period, no building permits may be issued or other work commenced. And with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Rick, seconded by Bob. All those in favor? Thank you. All right. Now, thank you very much, Vanessa and Kevin and Matt, of course, thank you very much. Council members, we're going to switch to the next Zoom meeting for our regular council meeting. Good luck with the building of the home.
Thanks, they're very excited.